What happens if the US runs out of money? US President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy are set to meet once again on Monday to discuss a deal to lift the US debt ceiling. An agreement must be reached by June the 1st, or the Treasury Department has warned the US faces a potential default. The debt cap currently stands at roughly 31.4 trillion US dollars, but that limit was hit in January, forcing the Treasury Department to use extraordinary measures to provide the government with cash. But Democrats and Republicans have very different ideas on how to proceed. President Biden said he won't agree to the latest proposal from Republicans.
I'm not going to agree to a deal that protects wealthy tax cheats and crypto traders while putting food assistance at risk for nearly 1 million Americans. And it's time for Republicans to accept that there is no bipartisan deal to be made solely on their partisan terms.
Historically, the US has never defaulted on its debt, so we don't know what it's like, as this will likely cause significant economic damage in the US and across the globe. CNN chief business correspondent Christine Romans joins us from New York to answer that huge question. What does happen if America runs out of money?
You know, the U.S. government bond market is really the cornerstone of the global financial system, quite frankly. So we don't even really know what the ripple effects would be. We just know that catastrophic, Armageddon, these are the kinds of words that economists and policymakers use when they imagine a world in which the United States doesn't have enough money to pay all of its debts. There's about $57 billion in the bank account right now, the Treasury coffers right now. And as you get into June, there are going to be some big payments that'll be necessary. Veterans benefits, Social Security, that's paid on the second, third, and fourth Wednesday of the month. And the big question is, what happens to the Treasury Department when they're trying to decide which bills to pay if you don't raise the debt limit? It's sort of a Hunger Games of sorts, trying to decide what would have the least amount of damage and help the most people. Maybe the Treasury would decide to keep all of its fixed payments if it could. So Social Security it would try to pay, veterans benefits it would try to pay, but maybe it would give contractors IOUs. This is what they're trying to game out here, trying to figure out how that would work. Now, if you give federal contractors, a big part of the American economy, IOUs, you're in a situation where economists at Goldman Sachs have estimated that the day after you go over this X date, you could, in effect, shut down 1/10 of the American economy. It just stops all of that economic activity. That would certainly cause a recession and probably cause, a calamity in stock and bond markets around the world. There's always there's just so much at stake. It is so intertwined, the U.S. Debt market and American debt borrowing. Max, a good way to look at it here is that the world relies on the U.S. debt, right? The U.S. spends beyond its means and issues debt in return that is the most sought-after investment in the world. It allows the U.S. to invest in its economy and invest in itself and grow to the biggest economy in the world. So you're hearing these rumblings in Washington that this debt is such a bad thing. But in the eyes of international investors, it is something that is a strength, not a weakness. But this is all politics here. This is a political game, not an economic game at this moment, and that's what has investors so concerned.
And no